Well, friends, we're really excited to introduce you today to Nancy Keenan. Nancy is the founder and owner of Harris Park Homes, a construction company that helps build people their dream homes. She is also a real estate professional, licensed contractor, and longtime interior designer. Nancy believes that a home is not a home because of its room dimensions or the color of the walls. A home is defined by how you feel when you walk through the front door. I love that. Nancy's also earned the top producer award in her real estate company. She is married and a mom of two, right? Did I get that right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
Daughter in high school and a son in middle school. So, Nancy, welcome to the Friendzy.
Thank you. Thank you, Jen.
I'm so excited to connect with you today, and you have so many interesting parts of your story.
Oh, thank
Um,
you.
but I think we start on the career side of things because I think it's so interesting to be a successful woman who owns a construction company. So, can you tell us what that is like to work in such a male dominated industry, building homes? Like, how have you navigated that, and maybe what some challenges you have faced?
Well, I think that when I started all of this at a very young age. I started making things and selling them when I was about 8 years old. And so building a business has just been something I've always done. I never thought twice about what I was doing. And so I kind of I have an art degree, so I went through art school and was always doing business, different businesses, and ended up really being focused on homes and residential construction and design. And I mean, it's overboard obsessed, really. I mean, it's pretty much all I think about and do, and it's always been that way. So I went back to school to the Atlanta College of Art when it was before it was SCAD, and studied interior design, and then opened a retail store in Toco Hills that was called About Design for the Home, and I had that for 5 years. And it was before Target opened, and it was before the crazy internet where people were shopping online. So it was a successful little store where I helped people with their home items and gifts and whatnot. And then I was pregnant with my daughter and decided that I was going to finish with the store and closed the store, sold everything in it, and started doing more interior design. And then was in houses, like amazing, amazing homes, West Paces Ferry. I was doing design. I painted murals. I did, back in the day, we did faux painting. That was like a big thing. So I was
Oh, yeah.
always
I
doing some
remember that trend. Yeah.
creative something. And and then I had a friend who had gotten her real estate license, and I thought, oh gosh, I should flip houses. I mean, that's just what I was made to do. And so I would go into the homes, and do different things to fix them up. I wasn't really doing construction per se at the time, but then it just fed itself. It was, just kept going. I kept adding skills. And then when I was pregnant with my son, I decided I needed to actually have more income and decided to get my real estate license. So I went through that process and began selling houses in 2007, which was a really, really bad time to start selling
Hmm.
houses because, 2007, 2008 for
Yeah.
real estate
Like
was
the worst time.
was tough. And so once I did get my license and started looking around, thinking, I guess I can't really flip houses when all the market is crashing down around me. So I learned how to sell houses and found quite a niche there selling houses until about 2013, when the market started to pick back up and I bought my first house to flip. And I thought, I'm crazy. I know I'm crazy. It's fine. I'm going to buy this house and I'm going to renovate it. I did not tell my husband. I did
Wow.
not really tell anyone. I had saved the money and I said, this is what I'm going to do. So I did that, and that was great. And then I bought the one across the street and flipped that one.
At
And
what
then
point did you fill your husband in that you had bought a house and were going to flip it?
okay, so that was a conversation for sure. And we had two small kids at the time, and I just said, I'm I'm buying a house and I want to renovate it. And he was excited. I mean,
Great.
he definitely was excited, and he was always supportive of me doing it. But he doesn't like construction, so he really didn't want to be a part of it. So I had to piece together my team, and
Mm.
I was had worked in construction alongside my real estate clients for a while, so I kind of had an idea what was happening. And then I bought a piece of property eventually, and I did a subdivision in DeKalb County, and I built 4 houses in a subdivision, figured out what that was like. I actually hired a builder to help me. So I interviewed different builders, and I actually had builders say to me, I don't know why you think you can do this. I mean, this was like, I got so much pushback for being a woman. And I know that a lot of women have the same struggle in construction, and the industry has changed. There's a lot more women in construction now. But back then, I mean, this was 2014, 15. And I mean, the looks on their faces when I would say, I'm going to build this house. Here's my plan. I financed it. I designed it. This is what I want to do. I finally found a builder who he told me his mother had been a very successful business person. So I think he had more exposure to women who were, more idea people. I mean, it seems so crazy, doesn't it, to think about that? But he was supportive, and eventually the market had changed to the point where I just didn't want to pay him anymore. And I had enough experience to go and apply to get my own contractor license, which is no small task. And at the time, and I know you know about I had a daughter who was very, very sick. And at the time she was sick, and I just kept pushing through. I kept saying, you know what, I have to do this. And no matter what somebody said to me, no matter, the questions, I had a man say to me, how do you have so much energy? And I mean, like some pretty like cutting statements about, like, why would you ever be doing this? How are you even thinking you're going to do this? And so that gave me more motivation, obviously, when you say no to somebody.
Are you the type of person who always wanted to prove people wrong?
I just kept saying to myself, like, it was just a natural progression.
Right.
There was no question about it. I didn't say to myself, oh, Nancy, maybe you shouldn't be doing this because you're a woman. That never occurred to me. And I had built up quite a crew, my electricians, all the people that work for me, the same people for so many years. And I never once had them say, you really shouldn't be doing this. It was more builders who were, kind of doing that.
Do you think they saw you as competition and were trying to knock down the competition?
I just think they were surprised. It was just genuine surprise. Like when I would go to the permit office and they would say, oh, who are you building for? And I would say, I'm the builder. I'm actually the contractor. And they just would shake their head and just kind of think, oh, okay, this is new, but I'm accepting of it, and it kind of, it was really hard. And I guess if I didn't feel like it was what I needed to be doing, I would have felt a little more intimidated by the process. But I just didn't. I just kept going. I mean, I had a moment. DeKalb County has a lot of issues in permitting and just in general, municipality-wise. And there's a sewer problem. And there was the sewer department when I was building my subdivision. There was a sewer department that was very difficult. And there was a man who met me out on the job site, and he got right in my face and he said, don't ever email my boss about me. And I had threats, people would it's just mind-blowing, some of the things that happened to me through the process. But some of my very proud moments came through the permitting, because I would go, a lot of people hire people to do their permitting. And I was like, no. I mean, my grandfather taught me, if you go to the bank, you go inside, you meet the people, you do this yourself. So I would say I'm doing my own permitting. And so I know the permit people at DeKalb County, and I feel very comfortable with that. But when I brought my contractor license for the very first time to register as a general contractor with the county, the woman looked at me behind the counter, and she looked at my license application, and she just shook her head and she said, I've never registered a woman before.
Wow.
And I was like, it's 2015, 2016, whatever it was. I'm like, you're kidding me. How is that even possible that it's so weird or rare to be a female, general contractor or builder? And then a few years later, I won an OBI award, which is a building award from the Atlanta Builders Association. And it's pretty high level to win one. I had no idea. I didn't even go to the ceremony. I had a friend who called me and said, Nancy, they're calling your name. Where are you? I can't believe I'm winning this. But this, like, I was one of the only women, I think, who'd ever won this award. And it just, to me, like, I was just taking steps for other women. I feel like anyone can do, if they have the level of obsession that I do with construction, then anyone can do it. But it's, it's a long process. It's a difficult process. But the one thing I do find now, just like many years later, I have lots of experience and can build just about anything, I think, at this point, residentially, not like commercial office buildings, but who knows, maybe I could do that too. But I do find the level of trust is different with me as opposed to maybe a male builder.
Oh,
So
interesting.
I
In
feel
what way?
I like to build for people I know. I really don't build for strangers at all, because I need to have someone who already trusts me and already knows that I have the level of experience that I have. But that, I think that just is naturally handed to men in a way, that they can say, I'm a contractor, and it's like there's a trust. You're like, oh, okay.
Mhm.
And most general contractors probably grew up with it, or they, were more in the industry with their family, or and even a lot of women in construction, that I've met, they were brought up in construction. I was not. And so I think there's that kind of, that little fine line of someone wants to hire me as their contractor because it's different and interesting, and I have the interior design behind me as well. But then there's always that level of like, you can't really do it. So I've had people ask to speak to my husband instead of me. And
What? And you even said your husband doesn't even like construction. He doesn't have a
no,
clue.
and he knows some
Wow.
about it, but he owns restaurants. He's
Yeah.
never been,
This is not his thing. This
no,
is your career.
he's a
Why that doubt? Is it just because it's so new? Why do people have that shred of doubt that you can execute?
I mean, I don't know. There's not enough of us. There's
Right.
not enough of, and there are so many more now. I meet women builders and general contractors, but I always ask them, like, are you the license? Because, like, they're not always the license. They can run the company, but they can't pull the permits. So they have to hire someone else to pull the permits. And I
Okay.
run into that a lot, but I pull my own permits. I mean, I am the GC. I actually have the license, and sometimes I've had to pull out my license number to prove it, which I'm sure there's plenty of
Wow.
men who don't have to pull out their license number to be like, yeah,
Right. Well, you're such a pioneer. I love that you're leading the way. And sometimes, I've had a similar experience in radio when I was anchoring a morning show on Star 94 with two male co-hosts. I was the first woman to have ever done that. And I was
oh
like,
my gosh,
people kept bringing it up and I was shaking my head. I was like, wait a second. We should not be doing firsts anymore, right? Like
no.
when you went to that office and the woman's like, I've never approved a woman before, and you're like, it's 2015. You're like, we shouldn't be still having firsts in 2015. It's a nice pat on the back or something like that. But I hope that we get rid of all the firsts for everyone,
Well,
right?
and when I went to my classes for the contractor license, you do classes. There's no women in there. It's all
Mhm.
men. It's always men. Everything that I've ever done, it's been all men. But when I was a freshman in high school, I wanted to take a drafting class, and I suck at drafting. I can't. My handwriting's awful, and I just like, you have to be so perfect in particular, and I'm more of a artist than that. But I went to my drafting class, and it was all like ROTC, types of boys, and I had no clue. I walked into the class the first day, and that teacher, it was in Bangor, Maine. I grew up in a Bangor, Maine, of all places, and I walk in, and he's like, "Oh, you're here for drafting?" And I said, "Yeah, I thought it would be a really cool class to take." And I was the only girl in the class, and he's like, "Awesome, welcome, sit down." And I always wonder, if he had given me pushback at that moment, would that have changed my life? Would that have
Mhm.
changed my goals? I mean, I didn't get any pushback. It was like, oh. it's weird that you're a girl and you're here, but guess what? That's awesome. Sit down. That's like kind of what I've gotten the whole time since for my whole life in this industry. And that's why I think I also love the real estate so much with it, because there are so many women in real estate, very powerful women in real estate. And so the blend of it has helped me kind of stay on track and not ever have felt, real pushback. It's been a little bit more encouragement, but there have been people along the way who are just like, can I just talk to your husband? I really don't want to talk to you. And,
Wow.
he doesn't, he just can't do it. He's not going to talk to them. And he'll even, when he visits a job site and somebody comes up on the job site and they go to him to ask him questions, and he's like, no, you really need to talk to my wife. And they're like, what? They look around like it's kind of funny. But I use that sometimes. You'll think this is funny because sometimes I don't want to talk to the people coming up on the job site. And so I'll point to my framer and I'll go, he's the contractor.
And your framer's looking at you like, what? Don't make me do this. That is hilarious. Oh
He just
my
has a
gosh.
good sense of humor about it.
So would you have any guidance for women, or tips on how to navigate a male-dominated industry? I know you've probably learned ways to navigate it along the way.
Definitely. I mean, I think that the best thing that I've ever done about it is to just not really give consciousness to it.
Mhm.
I really am focused on what I'm doing and where I'm going with my confidence is there. I think it's for someone to shake my confidence on what I'm doing is, I mean, it happens, I'll have someone on a job site who's like, you can't do that. You can't put that wall there, or you can't, and so that sometimes shakes me because I think, oh man, maybe I should know this. Maybe I don't know this. But as I've gone through the process and just kept pushing, not listening to those voices and not feeling that, I just don't pay attention to it. I don't give it credence. Like I'm sure you couldn't when you were sitting there and everybody's like, wait, you're a woman? You're just doing what you want to do. So you're
Right. You're
moving
just
forward.
doing your job. Yes.
And you're amazing at your job. And that, like, if you're good at it, well, and if you're doing it for the right reasons. So I think a lot of
Mhm.
people get into some of the things that I do. Us have so many people. My gosh, I teach people all the time about flipping houses. And they come to me and they say, I just want to flip houses, because it's on TV. There
Mhm.
are 30-minute TV shows about getting a house from beginning to end. And it just is not possible. We don't do that. It's a huge process. It's very difficult. And so I think people look at it like, oh, this is such a, fantastic, glamorous life. Glamorous is kind of a trite word, but it's like one of those things that a lot of people want to do. And so if that is what you want to do, it has to come from a place of wanting to do it because you actually want to do the job, not because you want to be on TV or you want to be, you want to make a whole bunch of money. Because I'll tell you what, I've lost money on projects. I have lost a lot of money on one project that I'll hopefully never do that again. But mostly it's been pretty successful, and so I think you have to do a job for the genuine part of the job and not because someone else does it or because it looks attractive. It really has to come from inside, and it always has for me from the beginning.
Do you feel that you have to be more prepared than male counterparts?
Oh yeah. Oh
Mhm.
yeah. The old saying, like you have to work twice as hard, whatever it is about when you're a woman in an industry, you have to work twice as hard and be, look like you're twice as good, I guess. And yeah, I do. I think that I've always been really conscious of that. Like when I'm building a product and I'm selling it to someone, that thing better be really good.
Right.
And I think
Right.
I do feel that. I feel that a lot.
And on the Friendzy, we celebrate friendships over 40 and women over 40. So, how has being a woman over 40 benefited you in your business?
I mean, I think it's given me more credibility,
Mhm.
more the recognition, the experience. When I first started, I still feel like I knew what I was doing, but I was taken less seriously when I was younger, and I feel like as now I'm 50 now, so I feel even more like I don't really care what someone else thinks as much. I feel like the judgment piece, it feels very, I guess, oh, just solid. I don't feel as shaky in situations where if I, was younger, I probably felt more self-conscious. People would judge you more because you're young. How do you know what you're doing? You're young.
Mm-hmm.
And so I feel like with the age, I can say, hey, I've been doing this for 20 years. And that's a lot. And I love being able to say that. I've been selling real estate for 14 years. I love being able to say that. I feel like it's real credibility and experience that people do hire and admire.
And like you said, that confidence has come because you've been interested in each step along the way, and each step beget the next one and the next one and the next one. It wasn't like you set out for this end goal, but you just learned along the way and you kept growing. That's
And
what I
I'm
think
not
is so
finished.
fascinating.
I would like to build some more subdivisions. I love developing property. I love the process of putting in the sewers and the infrastructure and getting a property ready. And I do see that, in my future as I get even more experience and more investors behind me.
You're definitely the first woman I've ever heard say, I love building sewers. That's amazing. I love
I always
it.
say that. I'm like, why do I love utilities? Like
That's
gas
awesome.
lines and it's all part of it. It's like it's working the land and bringing something to the land that is very needed. I mean, homes, it's everything. It's where we have our whole lives are in these boxes of sticks and bricks. But
Mhm.
it's a huge responsibility, and I just really enjoy that when somebody buys one of my homes that I built, and there's nothing better than that in my
Oh, that is awesome.
so
Tell
getting
us about, can you share what you've learned over the years about the importance of your home, or can a new home bring happiness? Or if somebody who's restless in their own home, even unhappy in their home, like what could they do to remodel it or make it feel more like them?
I think your environment is everything. It
Mhm.
really does. It affects your everyday life, and when you can have a space that has light, I think natural light is a very important thing. My homes that I build have large windows, and I kind of go overboard a little bit on that. You'll see behind me. I have all this is I'm sitting in my new addition at my house. So um, but I think that when I work with clients, like this is kind of what I learn when I'm working with real estate clients, is I learn about their environment and their where they are currently, and then what their goals are to get to a new environment. And it's always so interesting to me the certain things that really are the motivating factors for different people. And it can be location, it can be size. People go bigger or smaller, or change in neighborhoods. It's a lot of times family size based. And then I had a client who was moving from Smyrna to the Tucker area because they have jobs at the school near there, and they were driving an hour and a half every day on both ends of
Mhm.
their day. And so all I thought about the whole time I was working with them is, oh my God, I'm giving them 3 hours back.
Yes.
It's huge to do that. The
Yes.
lifestyle to get 3 hours back of every single day to spend with your kids, or, go work out or whatever it is. I felt like that was an honor that they let me help them, get to that place. But I do think that, the colors you use in your house, some people love bright colors and that makes their whole life, and that's great. But some people need, more serene with the lighter, white is very popular right now. It's a lot of white. And I think our world, it's directly reflected from the world we've been in the last couple of years.
Oh, interesting.
And so people are, but they're obviously your home has become something completely different. People were working, outside the home. A lot of people are working at home, and really have changed the way they use their homes. And so when I watch those changes happen, to me, it's so fascinating. And it is like a psychological science to watch people, whatever their motivations are. And then sometimes I'll sell people in their lifetime, 2 or 3 different properties. So their life kind of goes through shifts and changes. That's really, really fun to be a part of. And people in their homes, I mean, obviously your home is your sanctuary. So you get to go home, and what does that feel like to you? What do you want it to be? Some people live in 1,000 square feet. Some people live in 10,000 square feet. Why? I want to know why. What is that motivating factor? And it does help my clients more and more. And it helps my building when I'm building houses too. I think about what people's needs are currently, but then also in a timeless way, how do we build something or create something that is not going to be trendy, that you're going to hate in 2 years? Because I feel like that's really important too, because you have to take the cost into.
Right.
So
Yes.
if you do like a big trendy thing, you have to be careful about that.
Right, right. One trendy thing I wanted to ask you about in building, and I wish Melissa was here because she and I have talked about how she's a light sleeper
Okay.
and how, anything will wake her up. And I was joking with her and I said, well, a lot of people build homes now with 2 primary bedrooms so that they can sleep separately. Is that a trend or is that something that's here to stay? What are you seeing?
I think I see it more and more with
Really?
depending. Well, it's different now. Working with people, there's usually two breadwinners in the home, right? It's
Mhm.
old term, but
Yeah.
usually, and people might have different work schedules, so it is important to have an extra. The demand for an extra suite is more and more than I've seen in a long time. And I actually have worked with a few ER doctors who work that opposite shift where they
Oh,
need to be
yeah.
asleep during the day. And I've built out spaces specifically for that with extra sheetrock. We do soundproofing, we do blackout
Yeah.
shades. And and there is a call for that more and more, I think. The quiet garage door opener, something that you probably never
Yes.
thought about. But having, when people come home and it's off hours, especially when you have kids sleeping.
Yes, our daughter's bedroom is right above the garage, so sometimes if my husband wants to go work out early in the morning and doesn't wanna wake her up, he'll park outside of the garage at night because we don't have a quiet garage door.
Yeah, that, and I have that request, and in my homes that I build now, I always put the quiet one in because I mean, why not? It's not that much
Yeah.
fun.
Like you said, it's a quality of life issue, it's something that will give you back a quality of life that you didn't have before that or before
And I
the
think
extra
people are
bedroom
more
or the
focused, like
Yeah.
definitely more consciously focused on quality of life than they ever have been. And
Yes.
I think that's amazing. I love seeing people they're not just wowed by some, shiny object. It's like people really coming into themselves and thinking and processing what is important to you. Don't think about what matters to your sister or what matters to, your brother-in-law or somebody who's, you're always having these voices in your head. And I do think people have come more into their own opinions. And I love to see that.
That is so cool. Now we talk here on the Frenzy a lot about how women juggle it all.
Mm.
So, and we're not sure that anybody's got the clear answer, but what about for you? What's your take on juggling family and work life? What works best for your situation?
Well, I'm lucky that my schedule is pretty flexible,
Mhm.
and flexible in that I don't have a 9 to 5. I mean, I work more like 7 to 11. So it's a little
I was
longer
gonna
day,
say, yeah, I
but
was gonna say,
it
are
is
you
nice.
24/7 on call?
Yeah, there's a little sleep. So, but I do think I think women struggle with that word balance of,
Mhm.
and I just don't. I heard someone recently talking about this in depth, and the short of it was, whatever you're doing at that time, do that. So you can't be thinking like, oh, I've done 50% of my day at work and 50% of my day with my kids. There we go. I did it. I won. It's
Right.
like, I'm doing this work today. I have a lot of work to do today. I need to put all my everything into this work today. And then when the kids, maybe at a certain time of the day or night, I might say, this is the time I'm going to spend with the kids, and do that, and not feel like
And
I'm
not be
told.
yes, not be answering emails while you're with the kids. Yes.
Yeah, I've heard people say that a few times, and it really, I think that made me feel a little bit better, because I think I felt
Mhm.
like guilty, kind of like, oh, I can't balance. I can't balance. And I kind of
Sure.
got off of that word for myself, and it lightened my guilt load.
We're deleting balance. Goodbye, balance. Just
And,
hello, focus. I
well,
like
and with
that.
we kind of touched on my daughter's had some medical issues, and and that those things come up. A lot of people have
Mhm.
kids that have issues. I know you've had your own with your family, and when that, if you're able to shift and take care of those things and still keep up with your job and the things that you need to do, I mean, it's just such a wonderful existence, to not feel like I had to miss out on any of that. I was able to say to my clients, hey, I'm taking my daughter to an appointment, and that was a gift. I feel like every day I'm so thankful that I get to do what I do.
Nancy, I want to hear a little bit more about your daughter's health journey, because I think it will resonate with parents and other moms listening. Can you share that story with us?
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, when I'm in the middle of all this building, right? I'm getting my contractor license, and working my real estate career, and I have a child who, my daughter was, it's actually something we now know she was born with. So it's called
Interesting.
ARFID, and it's an avoidant restrictive food intake disorder. So people have picky eaters, right? And you hear people talk about picky eating. Well, I knew my child was a picky eater, but when she got to a certain age and she needed more growth, and she was doing gymnastics, so she was a lot of output. There wasn't enough input. She really has never been a good eater, and then she was getting thinner and thinner, and she was dropping weight, and the pediatrician was saying, um, just make her eat some macaroni and cheese, just make her drink a milkshake. And I'm like, this is not working. And she was getting, like, it's hard to explain, because people who have eating disorders act like normal people, like, for the
Mhm.
most part. You're not really going to
Mhm.
see how physically, medically ill they are until there's a certain point. And so I was working out with a trainer, and the trainer was affiliated with the Eating Disorder Information Network, which is a charity that I work with as much as I can. It's in my heart. They It's an education network, basically, and when people have people at schools or different places, this charity goes to the schools and does education. So this particular person that I worked with knew that eating disorders, because she had been on the board. She was a dancer previously. And so she said, I was training with her, and I said, God, she's just eating less, and I don't know what to do. And she's acting, strangely. And she said, I think you should talk to this nutritionist. And I said, well, my pediatrician says, it's okay. And so I finally went to this nutritionist, and she ultimately hospitalized her. She was very, very sick.
Wow.
And I didn't know. And the thing is, she was about, I don't know, 12 hours from death.
Whoa.
So it's so incredibly serious. And I was just knocked off my horse. Like, what do you mean she has to go in the hospital? And this nutritionist, who in my mind walks on water, she saved my daughter. And she said her heart rate is so low, this is a dangerous place to be. And I was like, okay, well, I guess, and I know nothing, like zero, about eating disorders, zero. And I said, well, we'll just wait till tomorrow. And she said, well, if your daughter had cancer and you could have treatment now, would you go now or would you go tomorrow? And I was like, well, geez, I guess I better go. So we took her to the
Wow.
hospital, and and she was in intensive care for 2 full weeks while
Oh
they
my
started her body back
goodness. Nancy,
up.
intensive care?
Yeah, I mean, at Scottish Rite, which is the most amazing place in the
Mm.
entire world. And I had been working. I was just getting ready to build this massive house. I mean, when your child gets sick, I mean, you're living your life. I mean, you had a daughter. I know
Mhm.
a little bit about your story, not a ton, but I did listen to you on the radio when that, like, we were kind of at the same time, like you were.
Mm.
Wasn't that around that 2016?
Yeah, yes. Reese was diagnosed in 2016. Yeah, and we were at the other campus. We were at Eggleston while you were
Oh,
at Scottish Rite. Yeah,
amazing.
they're
And
wonderful.
but they have an eating disorder specialty unit at Scottish Rite, so
Oh,
that's why we
wow.
were sent there. And unfortunately, she had actually that week before she had been in the ER at Eggleston because she had been like keeled over, crying, her stomach hurt. And I was like, "What's wrong?" I mean, it's so strange to have this happening. She's 11 years old, and I knew she wasn't really eating, but I didn't know this could do all this damage. And we went into to have a the doctor did an X-ray, and usually the person who's the tech would not make any kind of recommendations. I mean, they're doing the X-ray, and that the tech went to the doctor and said, "This child's bowels are full," and and her bowels had stopped. Okay,
Wow.
stopped, and they gave us an enema and then flushed her, and then sent us home with Miralax, which is what almost killed her.
Oh, wow.
So her story changed the protocol for eating disorders. Her actual
Wow.
story, she is responsible for changing the protocol, which makes me cry. But her story is so unique that she's the she's the case study for doctors all over the world. So it's really interesting. So anyway, after that, she went to the hospital. She didn't have any blood going to her brain. Her metabolism had shut down. Her heart was stopping, and
Oh
they
my goodness. And all the while this is happening at home, she's still doing gymnastics and going to school and everything else. It was like happening underneath the surface.
it was so like, and I look at the pictures of her back then, and I'm like, God, she was always tiny. She was never a good eater, and it didn't get to be that concerning until really we went on a class trip and I saw the other kids eating, and that's kind of when it hit me. When I saw the kids, at 11, 12 years old, they should be eating like horses. I mean, that's like when I hear women limiting their kids' food around that age, obviously it makes me sick to hear that. But
Sure.
I'm like, that's when they're growing. That's when they have the most nutritional needs. And she was not eating. But I had been told as a mom, you let your kids eat when they want to. It's like that intuitive eating. But kids like her, it's actually very common, believe it or not, kids like her don't always have that hunger cue, and they might not have the ability to say it's time for me to eat because she's a very busy kid. And so anyway, she was existing, she was going to school, she was going to gymnastics. Her gymnastics was getting a little manic, and then I caught her exercising at night, and I caught her looking at food labels, and there's a lot of signs that I talk to parents a lot about. These are like the steps you don't want to get to. You don't want to get to
Mhm.
the point that your kid is obsessing about how many calories they're eating. Like, it's normal for kids to care about nutrition. It's normal for kids to be hungry and eat a bunch of stuff that you might not eat. But it's not normal for them to get to a level of obsession when their weight is dropping and not gaining. So hers dropped a lot. And then she had to go to a treatment center in South Carolina because there were no treatment centers here. So once she got medically sort of stable ish, she went into an inpatient facility in Columbia, South Carolina called the Hearth, which is not there anymore. But she had to go there. She was there for almost 3 months, and that was a big challenge to go back and forth. And now we have a place here. We have Veritas Collaborative. It's an eating disorder facility where they have inpatient, they have residential. treatment. And her doctor, who is the medical director there, Dr. Anna Tanner, she uses nori as like a case study for ARFID, which is a specific kind of eating disorder, a little bit outside of anorexia, but it would cause anorexia to happen, because anorexia is kind of a body state, I guess, and also a mind. So eating disorders have like a biological component, a medical component, a genetic component, which is so crazy to me.
Wow.
And
I did not know any of that.
it's so complex, and they call it a cancer of the mind. So it's so invasive. And I've worked with so many parents. I'm definitely not an expert. I'm just a mom, just a mom that went through something that I don't want anybody to go through. And so we've been really vocal about that. And so I get probably 2 or 3 Facebook messages a month from moms like, should I be worried? And then I can say, well, here's a group of nutritionists that we like, and here's, a place that we like to go to. And there is a difference between having a picky kid and then having an eating disorder kid, So it was a very awful, and she's still in recovery. She has a doctor's appointment today. I mean, we go through, we have appointments and appointments and appointments to help her with her ability to eat and to stay stable at a weight that's stable. But generally, people can get treatment, get cured, go on with their life, and hopefully be another voice for eating disorders, because it's also environmental. Like there's big studies right now going on about TikTok and how damaging it is for girls and boys. I mean, a lot of boys have eating disorders too, but it just seems to be a little more in the, more girls. We've met more girls through the process than we have boys. But that social media is so hard on girls, and anything that talks about eating in a negative, guilt-ridden way, like people say, clean eating is the worst. I wish I could get rid of that term forever and ever. It just sets up guilt, especially for kids, because kids think very black and white. So they don't really have that. Like you and I have experience over time. If someone says like, I'm on the cabbage soup diet, you're like, you're an idiot. But like little kids hear that and they're like, maybe I should try that. I'm fat. So it's really mind blowing, some of the stuff that we've seen, and going through that has definitely made me a lot more aware of my own comments and kind of body things that I have. So
So I'm sure as a mom, you went through a lot and learned a lot in that journey.
mm.
What do you think's your biggest takeaway from it?
I would say that through the process of going through, I guess, like sort of in a bigger picture, because a lot of people won't go through eating disorders, but a lot of people go through health with their kids, a lot of really scary, scary, scary things. And I really focused on not, like they always say, like me time, care, self-care, whatever bullshit. I'm sorry, but I don't like, I think my self-care was learning more about what she was going through and being there for her. And then also, just kind of looking at it as more of a big picture thing. Like, we're going to get through this, and it's not crushing me. This isn't going to crush me. I'm not going to have my child being sick take away everything else I have. I had a giant career. I have a giant career. I'm so lucky. I wasn't going to let the fact that she was sick be, that devastating to the rest of my family. I have another child who was, needed attention as well.
Right.
And I do think that I see a lot of families going through eating disorder treatment. You are with families. You are not alone. There's like all the families, and they're so, I literally saw a woman had a heart attack and died, a mother, at the eating disorder facility. It's so stressful. I don't know what other health issues she had, but I was like, God, we have to stay and hang in there for these kids. We can't fall apart or let it, so having a good therapist, like I have a therapist who I love, and going to, taking care of yourself that way, but then doing everything you can to be there for your child without, without falling apart. I mean, that's like, you have to keep that example. And, I see a lot of families oh my God, I've seen some really bad things where the family just falls apart. And then what does the kid have, So I guess
Mhm.
learning to just stay strong and work through it without focusing so much on it that you just I mean, I don't know what else to say except fall apart. You really
Right.
have to stay strong.
Right.
I know you had to do that. Having a child with cancer, I mean, my nephew had cancer and he's good now, and it was awful for the family, but you still have to have your life and do the things that you would normally do, but I think you have a heightened appreciation for
That's
those
true.
things that you do get to do, right?
Right. And you have a heightened appreciation for when things are good and the health is good. And I will say with our family, when Reese was diagnosed, I mean, I remember sitting down with my husband in the hospital on the like tiny little parent bed and just saying, like, this is not going to tear us apart. Like,
Mm-mm.
we're going to have a lot of challenging times, but we have got to make sure that like this pulls us together and not pulls us apart. And I have a
That's so
dear
good that you
friend.
said that. That's
Yeah. I have a dear friend whose daughter also had an eating disorder. It also was very under the surface. The family was not aware of it. It seemed like it really snuck up on them, not on
Mhm.
her, but on them. And
Yeah.
they went to a treatment facility as well. And I watched their family really pull together. She has 6 children, and I'm
Okay.
telling you, the ones that were in college came home, and the ones that were younger quit activities. Like they pulled in tight into that nucleus
Oh, that's
and
so great.
wrapped their love around their daughter with the eating disorder. And she's now home and doing so much better and so much
Yay.
healthier. But it was something that could have really pulled them apart. And I was just so impressed that, it was like everything else has to stop for a little while and you have to
Yeah.
really pull that together. But like you said, also not forget that you have so many other things going on in your life that nourish you, that lift you up, that help define who you are, and not completely abandoning those either, but really trying to it helps you reprioritize. I guess
And
what I'm
the
trying to say.
people the people I know you probably remember, I mean, I remember the friends that were there in a way that was just it's priceless. And so I'll
Mhm.
always be thankful for the friends who, I mean, they took my son or, they did whatever they did to support us without being like, oh, we're here if you need us. Like that's like annoying when you're in like a really big crisis and someone's like, oh, just let me know if there's anything I can do.
'Cause
And
you
I
won't
was like,
ask, right? You're in the middle of a crisis, you're not gonna be like, "Now let me go through my list of friends and ask
"Hey."
everyone for help." No, you don't do
These are
that.
always
Nobody does that.
the
But
people
yes,
that you say, like, can you pick up my son? And they're like, oh no, I'm busy. I'm like, I asked you for one thing. You said you wanted to help.
right,
Well,
exactly.
and I'll always remember the people who did that. And then with the pandemic, it's been really funny. I have like had like my little, this is going to sound terrible, but like a little giggle moments about parents who are like, my kid was out of school for like all this time and they're going to be destroyed for the rest of their life. And I'm like, my daughter missed the entire year of sixth grade, the entire year. It's like the one of the most, developmental years
Mhm.
of your life. And these people are all complaining about their kids not going to school. And I'm like, gee, I hope they're healthy. And so I kind of had like those little moments in the pandemic, which is probably not super healthy. And my therapist would be like, that's kind of crooked thinking, Nancy. But you go through a lot as a
No.
parent with a sick kid that is, you know, we're so thankful that the kid is still here, that like these little things like missing a little bit of school. I mean,
Yeah. You don't
yeah,
sweat as much small stuff anyway.
no.
It's like, are they healthy? Are they well?
And I wouldn't
Is
wish it on anyone. Like no one would
yes.
wish any of this
No.
on anyone, but it does give us some camaraderie, solidarity as moms. Like when someone else has been through something so serious, with their kid, like, oh man, I know how that feels.
Yeah. And I want to ask about your son too, because I think sometimes the siblings that are healthy and well kind of get left behind. And that happened with us too. It was our older daughter that was the healthy, thriving child when the younger one had cancer. But
Oh,
how
and
is
they
your
were
son
young,
doing? How's your
really
son
young.
doing with it?
He is great. He was like 8 years old, and he is now he's 14, is eighth grade. He'll be going into high school next year, and he's great. He does not have an eating disorder, and that is like, to me, like, I laugh about it, and he laughs. He knows so much about it. He laughs about it too,
Mhm.
and I'll say, like, he'll say, "Well, I don't want to eat that," and I'm like, "I don't care. You're gonna eat it." He's like, "Mom, I don't have an eating disorder." I'm like, "I know you don't, but I can't help it. Want to do that." But I feel like, as a boy, having, like, going through all of these things that with the family therapy, and he was always there, and he was young, but it will benefit him in his
Mhm.
life. I think he has more depth of emotion than some boys. Maybe, I don't want to, like, define by gender that much, but the therapy, when we were in the heat of the disorder, we said to the family therapist um, that we were worried about him, because this is a terrible thing to have to go through. You almost lost your sister. Like, this is, scary. And the guy, the therapist said, that's the beauty of being an 8-year-old boy. He it's not really gonna affect him that much. And I was like, okay, that made me feel a lot better, because boys tend to,
That's a relief. Yeah.
it's a little, yeah, but I can imagine having the siblings be that young, and how much that must have affected your older daughter too. And the worry that they have is just as much as the worry we have.
Yeah, it's interesting how it comes out when they're young. I've witnessed it actually kind of come out in my daughter as she's gotten older because they were so little. I don't know that they really remember the experience, but it's in their blood somewhere because
Oh yeah.
she's very protective over her little sister. She gets really emotional around the times when she goes back for checkups and things like
Oh,
that. So it's in there somewhere, definitely.
and how old are they now?
They are third grade and kindergarten now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. And doing great and doing great. But I think you're right. I mean, camaraderie as moms who have been through, where you're afraid you're going to lose your kid, there is not a worse feeling than that. And
yeah,
to come back from it and to now have healthy children, it's just such a blessing.
it is. It really is. We have a lot to be thankful for.
We totally do. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story today. We do something on the Friendzy called the Friendzy 5. This
Okay.
is rapid fire questions, just
Okay.
5 of them to get to know you better. So just first thing that comes to your mind, okay? All right, number 1, where is your cozy happy place?
Oh, my cozy, happy place. I can make lots of places cozy and happy. I think I'm just, like, generally happy, but I think one of my best places is in the middle of one of my construction projects, when I'm just by myself, and I'm like, this is pretty cool. Makes me feel really,
Awesome.
really good. Yeah.
Number 2, what's your favorite framed thing in your home?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I have a lot of framed things because I'm an artist, so I have framed things. But I think one of my favorite things is the kids did pizza box self portraits in kindergarten. So
How
they're like a
cute.
self portrait on a pizza box, and I have them in a shadow box. So it's like, that was, their idea of themselves in kindergarten, and I think those are their treasures. I hope they never fade or fall apart.
Cute. That's adorable. Okay, number 3, what's your most memorable birthday?
Oh God, my 40th was, oh my God, it was the best thing. My husband used to own Front Page News, it's a restaurant in Midtown in Little Five Points, and
Oh, yeah, I'm a huge fan.
we had, so we had, I had friends that came from out of town, and high school friends, and we had the whole place, the whole Front Page News and Tijuana Garage. It was like a big complex in Little Five Points. We had 80s band. I don't know how many people were there. Tons and tons of people. We danced. We had the best time. And then he did drag show. There was like a drag show that we used to have at Tijuana Garage, which is
Yes, I
really
remember that. I've seen it. Yes.
it
Such a
was so
blast.
funny. It was kind of, awful and cheesy, but we had he had the whole drag thing set up for me. So he had the whole, Charlie was like the head guy, and he all the drag, they went to all these, like, the top of every drag you could be for me for my birthday, and that was amazing. So I think that definitely stands out as to one of the best parties we ever had. And then I turned 50 in the middle of the pandemic. I was supposed to have a huge party at the Vista Room, which was our other venue, and it closed for COVID. So that was like the opposite. But the 40th was
50,
definitely the star.
55. 55 is going to be big. I can feel it. I can feel it. Okay. Number 4, what is a daily routine or ritual that you stick to?
Oh, oh goodness, coffee. I love coffee. I know it's terrible, but I love to have my coffee in the morning. I love the way that first sip tastes, and I have it every single day. And my day, every day is different because I never know what client is going to need me, what house is, what's happening in my career. But I do always have my coffee. I know it sounds like a lot of people have their little rituals, but that's definitely one for me. I hope I never have to give that up, but I love that first sip, and I feel like I'm ready for my day now once I have that.
That's awesome. And finally, number 5, what fashion trend did you jump on? Any decade.
Oh, oh my God. Okay. All right. We're gonna laugh. This is bad. I think it was like ninth grade. So this would have been 80, what is that? 85. And I got into, like, there was a Michael Jackson with the black boots with the silver buckles and the zippers and like all the Michael Jackson fashion stuff.
Yes.
I was obsessed with the Michael Jackson fashion. So I had the buckle boots and I did not have a glove. I did not wear that silver glove, but I think I went a little overboard and I dyed my hair black. And yeah, that was definitely an 80s trend that a lot of people did.
I love it. Michael Jackson has never been answered in the Frenzy 5. I love it so much. Fantastic,
Those silver
Nancy.
buckle boots, I swear to you, I wish I still had them.
Oh, I know. They're back in style now, right? They'd be so hip now. All right. If y'all want to find out more about Nancy or have her build your dream home, she can do that because she is a badass builder chick. NancyKeenan.com. That's KEENAN.com. Or you can also find her at HarrisParkHomes.com as well. Nancy, this has been such a pleasure connecting with you.
You
And
too.
I wish you and your daughter and your family just all the best. I'm so glad she's doing
Thank
well.
you. Oh, thank you so much. It was so nice to meet you. Thank you.